Hi there, welcome to Shed Manufacturing, a YouTube channel that I made mostly because I wound up realizing that I do some cool stuff and figured a couple of you might want to come along for the ride. Hello, this is Shed Manufacturing, and in this episode, we're beginning the restoration of my 1966 Lincoln Continental. I picked this car up around 6 months ago when it had popped up on Facebook Marketplace for much cheaper than any other Lincoln that I'd seen. First on the set of things to do is get air back into the front tires and get it rolled out of the garage and into the shed. It's proved to be a little more dangerous than usual, mostly because the brakes were just ornamental at this point. I had a runway path cleared and went about it as smoothly as I could for having no hope, or no help. Next up was get my trusty Volvo tow car to yoke it into the shed. This car, despite being rather hideous, has incredibly strong bones underneath. The rockers and the sills, the A post and B post and C post are all absolutely solid, except for a little bit of surface rust on both the A and C posts. This has been a dream car of mine for absolutely forever, so I just couldn't resist picking up this really, really rough example and bringing you guys along for a ride. There we got it into the shop. Wound up having to tow it in with the Volvo, which doesn't sound as fun as you might think. Anyway, I had to do some dancing around to get the Volvo back out. Then it was time to put the rubber to the road and get it jacked up for the first time and actually see underneath it. Because I'd never seen underneath this car until right now. Where I bought it from was grass, and I just sort of really hoped that the underside would be just as good as the top side based on kind of the noises that it made when I hit it with wrenches. And here we are getting underneath, and lo and behold, they put some massively thick factory seam sealer, but now that it's 50-something years old, we're pretty much able to flake it off with screwdrivers. And that is the factory paint underneath. There is no rust that got to this car from the underside, and I'm so over the moon for that. Here we are taking off the hood, and eventually we got the trunk off as well. Now, one of the things that I noticed when we first got this car is there was just an enormous gob of Bondo on the front, and I figured that it was covering up rust holes or something similar. But after a good amount of hammering and screwdrivering, we realized that we think they just backed something into it or just rolled the car into something, dented the front, and then just couldn't be bothered to do the actual metal work to pull it back out and make it straight again. So instead they just put a good half-inch of Bondo on there. But you know, no harm, no foul. We got it there now. And this stuff was just the weirdest consistency. It was kind of hard up top, but I suspect because it was so thick, it just had no chance to actually cure on the inside. And as a result, like you can see that it's got this sort of gummy consistency as I'm pushing the screwdriver through it there. We wound up doing this for quite some time. Eventually I resorted to getting a blowtorch and really putting some heat to the situation, try and make it gum up the rest of the way to make it a little more compliant.
Smells like broken promises. Don't breathe this.
I noticed that as I was prying, I was starting to flex the body more and more, and I didn't think it really needed any more gouging and damaging to the monocoque. Because interesting thing about these old Lincolns is it's despite it being a huge American car, it isn't a body on frame. It's a unibody. The whole thing is one piece of steel, and it has no fenders and no front valence. All of that stuff right there is all one piece of metal. They welded and then leaded everything in together to make it all just appear to be one piece, which is very cool for looking at it, but kind of a pain for actually working on the thing, because you don't get the option to just pull the whole body off the drivetrain to do any kind of resto. You have to do everything around the sheet metal that you're working with. Here we are getting a little more progress with the application of some heat. As you can see, it just helps it melt right off the end there. And this sort of went on for a good little while, so I'll go ahead and let you get along with a little bit of music instead of me talking. It was right around this point where I started noticing that we had a bunch of holes in the front of the nose cone. I was trying to figure out what they were until I remembered seeing photos of old Lincolns, and they all had the word Continental across the front. And then we started searching through the car, and on the passenger seat, we found a bunch of individual letters. So we started trying to figure out where they all went. It doesn't take a genius to figure out how to spell Continental. Yeah, getting them all in there was sort of a funner game than I think, because they all have different holes in different positions, so you've got to sort of twist and turn to make sure they're all correct. But it turns out we were missing a few, so I just went ahead and Sharpied those in. I'm sure by the time we actually finish this thing, I'll find the rest of them. If anyone has an N or an L, let me know. I'd be happy to grab it from you. So at this point, it was about time to get going on outsourcing the work on the doors. My dad's really big into doing car restorations, and we've done them together for years. So when I told him I was doing a big Lincoln, he was pretty excited about it and wanted to help. But he wanted to help by me bringing him parts and him getting them refurbed. I guess he wasn't exactly anticipating me bringing him a bunch of very heavy, very thick Lincoln doors. These things are hilariously thick. They have to be at least 8-9 inches thick, which is weird considering they don't even have speakers in them. So here I am getting all the old vacuum lines off, because these door locks were all vacuum operated, which is a system that I have no interest in retaining. All of that will get converted over to electric when we go to put it back in. Yeah, every time I pulled one of these off, I was pleasantly surprised. Despite looking a little rusty inside, I only had one bolt that decided to shear off, and it was that front driver door right there. All the others came free with minimal penetrating oil put on them, and just happy as a clam came right off. These are just such interestingly designed cars with the exact way that all the door mechanisms come in. If you open the front and rear doors at the same time, it looks like they're going to touch just before they close. But you can tell that they obviously put some time in designing it. So I figured it was time to probably pull the radiator and condenser, but before I could even get to those, I had to pull the grille and the bumper. And man, there are some really inconveniently hidden bolts and nuts at the back of this grille. I gotta say though, it is easily the most quality grille I've ever put my hands on. It just feels so cool. It's a really nicely thick made aluminium. And out comes the bumper and blew out a huge amount of rust flakes from the battery box deteriorating in there. Well, thank you guys for watching the first episode of this. It's been a pleasure getting going on this project. This is one of those cars that I've wanted for just absolutely probably the best part of a decade. Stick around, we'll keep going with update videos.